I was here yesterday.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the final edition of the Drivers Lab iRacing Manufacturers Championship. We have a very special stream for you guys set up tonight. I'm joined by nobody. Well, not anymore. I'm joined by Dan Wells and Connor McGowan. Gentlemen, please say hi.
Thank you very much, Ruslan. Very excited to be here for the final event at what looks to be a very wet, soggy Silverstone, which is, I've been standing at these corners more than most in these conditions.
Yes, indeed. And Connor, you're here with the numbers.
Yes,
Tell
indeed.
us, what do the numbers say?
So, the numbers have been crunched, and in terms of the Drivers' Championship, there are only two people where they can win overall. That is Mr. Simon Petrovic and one Jack Doe.
Yes, indeed.
Simon currently leading the championship on 187 points, Jack tailing on 154, but there are still some situations where Jack can overtake and win this championship.
Very nice. So as I understand it, Simon needs to be fourth or below for Jack to even have a chance to win. Is that correct?
Yes, indeed. After the drop round, if Simon is on the podium to any capacity, it doesn't matter where Jack is. Simon wins the championship regardless. And if Simon is outside the podium, Jack would have to still win the race to overtake him.
Understood. Now, just to be clear, if it is a tie on points, we will be deciding the championship based on head-to-head results.
Yes, we will.
So that's for everybody at home to know. If you're doing your own quick maths, as we will be doing, we will keep you updated on that. But any tie result will be tie broken by a head-to-head. Now, the weather, Dan, you're familiar with Silverstone. You're familiar with the Silverstone rain. We have a lot of it today.
Yes, indeed. Silverstone, it's an airfield, so it's very, very open, very, very windy. You can experience a lot of gusts of wind, which can change the car balance from lap to lap. and you see this a lot with aero cars, and the GT3 cars in which we are racing with do have quite a lot of aero on them, but they'll be less worried about the wind direction today and more about how much rain there is on the circuit, which, as you can see, it's really pouring down as we just join. I think this is Jack Doe on the way down to what is turn 3. An amazing little complex, very, very tricky to get right, and all about maximum traction out of here, especially in these tricky conditions. As you see, hard on the power, going up the gears on the run down what is now known as the Hamilton Straight. He's going to pull over. I think he's going to go back to the box. That is typical when we're about to just ride on board, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. This is the man that is leading the championship and leading the championship comfortably. It is his championship to lose by all means. It is Simon Fiderovic. Solid driving all throughout the championship, very consistent with his results. No quote-unquote bad results, except for, I guess,
Commentator's curse working in real time.
Exactly.
I love this one. Each person we're going to ride on board with, I think they're just going to either stop or have a spin, aren't they?
Yes, absolutely.
I would like to get back to the potential draw that might happen, because
Yes.
there is a situation where that can happen. It's a very unlikely one, but if Jack were to win the race and Simon were to finish P4 with getting pole position and having the fastest lap in the race, they will be tied on points. And with the current head-to-head, Jack leads that 5-3, which would mean Jack would win the championship if they were to tie on points.
I see. So Jack does have a slight advantage if they tie, but Simon has the overwhelming points advantage. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. We are getting messages that iRacing might be down for maintenance, but it seems like everyone is out on track right now. This is certainly unplanned maintenance, if it would be. So, anyways, we'll keep a tentative look at that. Maybe it's a bogus alert that we're getting here, but
Yeah, I reckon they're just going to be having a laugh on that one. I hope.
yeah. Let's mention the Manufacturers' Championship. We do have another clear favorite in that championship as well. Of course, the two Drivers' Championships leaders, the first and second, are both Ford, so logically it makes sense that Ford is leading the championship and leading the championship very comfortably. Is there a way that they don't win tonight, Connor?
So there is, quite unlikely, but essentially the Porsches, which are the team in P2, currently the gap, Ford are on 341 points and Porsche are on 273. So the Porsches would ideally need to double podium at the absolute minimum, and the Fords would have to be either both DNFs or finish outside of the top 10.
I see. I believe the points are for the top 12.
Yes.
So they still need to be... So they can score a little bit of points, just...
Yes, they would need to score... If they scored more than 25 points...
Gotcha.
Ford would win regardless of... If Porsche won 2, but the Fords combined scored more than 25 points, then they win the manufacturers.
I see what you mean. All right, understandable. A tall mountain to climb, but not impossible. Still a championship that's up for grabs, considering everything that went on during the 5 previous rounds. Fords still somehow do not have it, but by all intents and purposes, it's their championship to lose.
Exactly, and considering how consistent Simon and Jack been throughout the season, I don't really see a situation where the Fords lose this, but you know, anything can happen. It's Silverstone in the wet. It's anything but ideal conditions right now. So, you know, I'm going to lean on the side of optimism, but it is very heavily in the Ford's favor right now. However, there are some positions that can still change further down the manufacturers. Obviously, there's no real prize here, but in terms of maybe pride and bragging rights, the bottom positions between Mercedes, BMW, and McLaren, they're all separated by less than 20 points still. So there can still be some movement around there. And the gap from P3 to P4 between the Ferraris and the Aston Martins is about 45. So still potentially some movement going on, but in terms of the top positions, they seem pretty solidified for now.
Understood.
We're seeing some quite interesting track action here with Hassan Saigal and the championship leader Simon Idorovic there. Looking quite interesting through Club and Vale. Very, very difficult. Now, one thing I want to ask you, Connor, what's it like driving in these conditions? I know what it's like driving in, let's say, a real car on track when it's a little bit tricky. iRacing, of course, with this, with the wet track. What's it like? How difficult is it compared to what you would normally be used to in the dry?
Yeah, I mean, it's a completely different situation, of course. You've got less visibility, less grip. You might, depending on the track as well, the lines you might have to take through certain corners might be completely different. We saw that quite a bit in Okayama, which was the previous wet round in this championship. And yeah, also, I don't know if we'll see that today, but in that race, the track also gradually dried throughout, which made the lines change again throughout the race. So potentially, if it gets wetter or drier in this, we'll definitely have to test the driver's ability to adapt as the race goes on.
Yeah, no, superb. I mean, this is one thing as a driver, adaptability is the key. And when you're, I say on track, the track is a living, breathing thing. So I guess what you're saying from Okayama, certainly, and we might see here today, if the sun comes out at Silverstone, which, not too often, especially when the weather's looking like this, as we see some very exciting door banging on the run down to Copse Corner.
You almost think we're in the race already.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, the practice is there to dial in your car setup. I guess they're also using it to be able to practice their racing manoeuvres. Of course, Silverstone, very, very wide open circuit. There are opportunities to overtake, but tell us a little bit, what would it be like? You say about the visibility. How difficult is it to make a pass stick in these sorts of tricky conditions?
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing getting alongside somebody, but like I alluded to before with potentially having to take different lines, you take that different line because there's more grip there. And if you have to make an overtake on someone, that might force you onto that less ideal, less grippy line, which ultimately might mean you don't make the move stick. So it's going to have to be a lot of commitment and also a lot of trust that the person you're racing with isn't just going to potentially spin on the less grippy line or understeer off into you, for example. But these two, borderline on that, but
Just as you were saying that one, they gave a great example. I think they were listening, wanting to just show a perfect example of what you were discussing there.
Yeah, these two, of course, having some history, they both do race on the same team, and throughout this championship, they have had their fair share of side-to-side action between each other. Unfortunately, not for the championship in Hassan's case, but for Simon, if he has to find himself in this situation in the race where potentially overtaking him will matter for the championship, there might be some choice words between them afterwards. But
Now, Connor, you are a part-time member of Meatball Motorsports.
I am indeed.
And so, what do you think the team dynamic is like going into this race, given that there's a championship on the line? Will Hassan listen to team orders and move aside and let Simon pass?
Well, we did see this in Spa, right? Hassan was leading the race, and Jack was closing up pretty quickly behind, and he seemed to pull over into turn one. Some say it was to have the slipstream to potentially re-overtake. Some would say it was team orders. Maybe we'll never know. But I think if we end up in that situation, part of me wants the gloves to be off and then no team orders will happen. That's, I think, what everyone here would want to happen. But at the end of the day, if, Hassan is thinking about the championship, he has his own championship to think about as well. Is it worth fighting tooth and nail for one position that might ultimately not matter?
Yes.
So this is something I want to pick up on with Hassan. He is a very talented young driver. What's his best case scenario tonight? Where can he finish in the championship?
I will have to check that. If you give me one moment. He is currently, as it stands, he's P4 in the championship currently, 5 points behind Zach Didcott, who is not competing today from the looks of it. So if he is in the top 10, he would then move up to third in the championship. He does have Aziz Omar, his other Porsche teammate, 7 points behind. No, that's wrong. 13 points behind. So there is potentially some movement going on there.
So a top three finish is on the cards potentially for Hassan tonight.
Potentially, yes.
It's very exciting. Hassan's a young driver who actually moved from Qatar to Dubai to be close to Driver's Lab for his driver training. Lovely family, lovely young driver. He's had some really stellar performances this year. I remember Daytona, some very attacking racing. Of course, not the driver with the most experience by any means, but developing really nicely. What do you expect to see of him here in the wet today?
I think there's potential for a really strong performance here. The Porsches seem maybe not quite like the car to be in today, but at the end of the day, the wet is the ultimate equalizer. So it will be down to the driver for the majority of this. And yeah, I think he has the potential to do really well if he can keep his nose clean.
Yeah, I think this is something which, watching a lot of the races, there is contact. Of course, the GT cars, you can do a little bit of argy-bargy, some door banging. Of course, with, I say, a few examples of netcode with iRacing, which often can sort of come about. Hassan's had some very sort of spirited performances. And talking about spirited performances, Jack Johns normally being one of them. Looking at the highlights from his performance in Imola, some interesting, let's say, racing manoeuvres. He's looking quite nice in the Aston Martin. What do you reckon? Can Jack spring a surprise today?
I think there's every possibility. I mean, if the Aston is strong as we're making it out to be, then I think there's definitely a possibility of that. And you see the two people in front of him are the two championship protagonists here. So could he...
Leo Aina and Simon Fedorovic getting involved.
So could Jack Johns potentially rattle these two a bit and potentially shake up the results of this championship? Who knows? I think if there was to be someone to do it, it would be him. So... who knows? We're
getting some very enthusiastic nodding here from Ruslan for those who...
Yes.
are not in the office.
Yes. Now, we do have qualifying starting in a short moment. I do want to mention a little side championship that's happening, and that is the Incidents or the Cleanest Driver Award that's going on. I do believe, Connor, you would have been leading that had you done enough races.
Yes.
So you have the best ratio out of all the drivers that have done at least, I think, 2 races or 3 races.
I think it's 3, yeah.
At the moment, it is Simon Fedorovic leading that. And again, it's his championship to lose. So maybe he wins all 3. Just a clean sweep of all the different championships that we have available.
There's something to be said for that, isn't there, in terms of the clean driving? We've seen some really exciting on-track battles. But keeping your nose clean is super important, especially in a championship situation. And I think we've seen Jack sort of fall foul of that a few times. A lot also in Imola more recently, in terms of making sure that first you've got to finish. That's the important point, especially when you're putting together a championship campaign. So that would be quite something if he does the triple in that regards.
Yeah, I think we've seen throughout this championship the sprints and reverse grid races has definitely been where Jack shines. Both of his lowest scoring rounds have been the 2 previous endurance rounds. So potentially, yes, some of that result is due to hardware issues. We have seen that. It was in Okayama and in Laguna Seca. He did have some problems. Still finished the race, but probably much lower down than he would have liked. I believe he was on for a podium in both of those. Had that a changed, this championship might be looking very different. And obviously today is an endurance round. So could this be down to, can Jack's wheelbase survive this race?
Yes, indeed. I do want to invite Dan for you to give us a breakdown of the whole lap. So we'll pick someone, probably Hassan Saigal. He's up the grid in terms of track position, just going through Maggots Beckett's right now. And we'd love to hear your breakdown of the lap and what you would be looking for, in a wet qualifying, perhaps.
Absolutely, yeah. So qualifying, obviously we're looking for, it's not a racing situation. You do want to run on your own, especially with the spray of the cars ahead. So as we go on board with Hassan, coming down to Vale Corner, hooking the curb on the left-hand side, you want to open up this right-hander as best as possible to get traction. You can see it's very, very wet here. He's trying for a slightly wider line to be able to rotate through a bit of understeer as he then moves up the gears to go through what is the F1 pit straight. Now we have an amazing corner here, Abbey, which in the dry, it's taken flat. Here you can see it's certainly not that going through in 3rd gear with the wipers going. A little bit of traffic on exit, who's being very, very nice to him as you brake here for the first part of the complex. Very, very tricky, but there's a lot of time to be gained because it is so low speed. You spend a lot of time in these corners, so just a small improvement gives a lot. He has a fair bit of traction issues on the exit as he's getting the power down, and the run down Hamilton Straight. Now we go under the bridge, a very famous part of the circuit. As we come down to Brooklands and then Luffield, you have the BRDC suite on the right, where a lot of the drivers, commentators, everyone would be watching from, enjoying the hospitality. And then Luffield, very, very long corner. Very important to get the exit, especially in the wet. Traction, which seems to be a little bit limited here for Hassan in the Porsche, because you have such long straights here, so any gain you can have in terms of getting good exits is very important. Now, one of the most famous corners in the world, Copse Corner, as we go through third gear, squeezing onto the power. That's taken with just a little bit of a lift and a brake in normal dry scenario. And then Maggots Beckett's. This is an amazing sequence of corners. Of course, in the Formula One, it might have been a charging station in qualifying this year. No such thing in the GT3 cars, as we're going through the final corner, coming onto the straight here before Stowe. Traction super important in the wet there. Gets a good exit and quite a long straight. Normally, you'll be looking to spot your braking point around about at the 100. Line the car up on the left-hand side with the white line. We'll see if he does a full wet line. No, he's going. That's quite a dry line. It's going quite narrow, but gets a good exit and the run down to the final chicane. Spot the braking. Very, very tricky indeed. Easy to lock up, go wide. No such issues for Hassan. Gets the final rotation. Picks up the power. As you see, a little bit more oversteer. Certainly traction limited in this qualifying session at the moment. As he then goes across the line, and we'll see what he's able to do.
Wow, fantastic, Dan. Now, interesting, the Village and Loop. I know those corners by different names.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, but it's cool to know the official broadcast-friendly name.
No, we use that in real-world motorsport as well. It's known by the name of a not very nice word 1 and a not very nice word 2. But actually, we say that, but they can be very, exciting corners. It's a big braking zone. You have to, enjoy driving. So if you come into it with a negative sense, the drivers aren't going to enjoy it. So we always try and encourage people to enjoy these corners. But yeah, I drove the final day, actually, in existence of the Bridge Grand Prix circuit, where, many, many years ago, you had... none of that there, and you literally just had a very flat-out left-hander, right-hander before then going into a break and a left over a hill, which was a blind crest, which was very, very exciting. But times change, and Silverstone's developing. They've got a new kart circuit here as well. They've done a super job to develop the facility, and it's nice to see the home of British motorsport going strong.
Fantastic.
I was lucky enough to be at Silverstone last year for the F1 Grand Prix, and the actual food court eating area, unbeknownst to us, was that new kart track. We were all standing and walking on it. Had zero idea that's what it was. They had the pit building covered up and everything, but yeah, that's nice and open now, running races already. But Silverstone to me, I think, I don't know if everyone would agree, but for me as a driver, deceptively long track. When you think long track, you normally think of the likes of Spa, the Mans, the Nürburgring. But Silverstone is... in that realm of being quite a long track, over 2 minutes in a GT3, I believe, in the dry. Obviously, if you're growing up watching mostly F1, every track seems quite short. But when you're in these, slightly slower cars, Silverstone is quite a long track where you can gain a lot of time. And we're seeing the gaps between some of the lap times in qualifying reflecting that.
No, absolutely, and this is a good point, as you say, that the fact it's a long lap, if you're just a little bit off around Silverstone, you're a lot off, and then that's just going to be amplified in the wet, as we see. Jack Doe currently on pole position with a 2-minute 14.885, and with his teammate just a couple of tenths adrift there. We haven't seen a lap yet from Jack Johns, so I'm not sure what Jack's up to.
So we have Jack, we have some communication from YouTube chat.
Oh, here we go.
Jack saying, shaking nothing up, starting at the back, lol. So this is a comment to what Connor was saying about shaking things up in the championship. It seems a wise choice given the weather. It can bite you back a little bit.
Potentially, it depends. We have to see how lap 1 goes. If it's absolute carnage, then yeah, it might be the 300 IQ move. But as someone who's also been driving in the Aston Martin this season and been contributing to their championship efforts, I am slightly disappointed because at the end of the day, I still want Aston Martin to manufacture really well. And could this be what shoots us in the foot? I don't believe
Ooh,
we
Simon
can lose.
Fidorovic going for a spin. Now, I did notice that Simon was trying to give Hassan some toe. I wonder if those are some dark arts coming through and trying to get Hassan up the grid to potentially put him in between Simon and Jack and see if he can be that buffer for Simon.
The issue is, I mean, the slipstream is going to be worth maybe a little bit, but certainly in these conditions, trying to get a clear lap is going to be the wiser choice. But interesting there from Jack, not taking part in this. Hopefully it's not because of my commentary here saying he's had a few bumps. I remember at Spa we had a very nice little, a cute little bump together. But we had some great racing. It's been a superb championship. But yeah, it will be interesting. I mean, coming from that back, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be in the fight. You never know what can happen. Certainly when you're fighting for the championship, these guys coming together. But yeah, interesting strategy there from Jack.
Yeah. Another bit of communication. This is something I should have remembered, but Jack does have a quali ban because he was improper communications in steward's room chat. So he did receive a quali ban some rounds ago, finally serving it this round. So
I was under the impression he had sort of straight away. I didn't realize it came, but yeah, that makes sense.
He wasn't supposed to have picked. Let's not discuss it on the broadcast. There's a whole thing behind that, but either way, he'll be starting at the back, whether that's good, whether that's bad for better or for worse.
So does that mean Jack needs to qualify now to stay out the way of Jack?
Perhaps.
The two Jacks.
Perhaps. Now we are at the end of quali, and we have our final order, which we'll not mention yet. We'll save that for the grid sequence. But we have a few drivers who have not set a valid lap. One of those is the driver we see on screen now, Matteo Quintarelli. Matteo, of course, a real-life racing driver in LMP3. Did really well in his ELMS round in Imola just a few weekends ago. So congratulations to him. Also won in Yasmari in the winter season that just passed. So a formidable driver and starting from towards the back of the grid. So let's see how that pans out. Yeah, Mohamed Al-Kubaisi, another driver to watch out for. He can be someone that can make up a lot of positions, lots of real-life racing experience as well. Was one of the pioneers of UAE Motorsports, of course. And let's see, we have a couple of new folks joining us. We have Felipe Nico, currently in P6 in the pits, and Gabriel Cesar Biazzo, both drivers who intended to join the championship, but didn't make the registration or had another reason not to join. Joining us for the final round as wildcards in the Ferraris. The Ferraris, very popular for the wildcard choices. What do you think of that, Connor?
Yeah, very well represented today. Unfortunately, the main rival of Aston Martin for this championship. So, you know, we only have one Aston Martin on the grid today, being Jack Johns, who has a quali ban. So, you know, unfortunately, I'm not able to compete.
Not
in
ideal.
This. Yeah, not at all. But, you know, again, anything can happen. Jack could make up a lot of positions from the back and potentially finish ahead of all the Ferraris on the grid today. Yeah, a lot can still go on. The session is still going. I think everyone still needs to finish a lap, and then we will go to the grid for the final race of this championship.
Just to clarify, it is Jack Johns with the penalty, not Jack Doe. So Jack Doe is clear to race. Jack Johns had a penalty for some an infringement of the rules he committed a little bit ago.
That's good for Jack Doe, given his pole position with a 2-minute 14.885. So that lap from earlier in the session is still standing, putting him on pole position. But yeah, very excited to see how this race is going to shake out.
Alrighty, so here we go. And we are gonna go towards the grid. Let's see, for the final round at Silverstone, round 6 of the Drivers Lab iRacing Manufacturers Cup. On pole position, we have Jack Doe, and in second place, we have Simon. I think that is the ideal position for Jack Doe to make some progress and put Simon in the hot seat, trying to induce a mistake perhaps to make him fall down the grid. Jack Doe is looking for the win and looking for Simon to be 4th or below to secure the championship. On the second grid, we have Aziz Omar, the leading Porsche representative today for the race. Next, alongside him, is Leo Aina, the lead and only BMW for most of the championship, holding down the banner for the German manufacturer. Another 2 drivers who can get into it between themselves, so hoping for a clean race for both of them. Gabriel Cesar Biazzo is on the third grid, very high up, a very good performance from him, sitting P5 in the Ferrari, representing the Italian manufacturer in a way that Xat Didcot is not able to for this race, and alongside him lines up the second BMW, the wildcard of Felipe Nico. Hassan Saigal wishing for a better qualifying, lining up in P7. A lot of work to do in order to make up the positions that he would like. And next to him, the potential upforce McLaren. We are back with Khalid Al-Muhairi sitting in P8. In P9, Ahmed Al-Kasmi, slow Apex livery driving school. And next to him, Said Bintouk in the ever impressive livery set that he's showing off to us. And that would be the grid of those who were able to qualify.
So it looks like Silverstone is still very soggy, very wet as we're lining up for the start of what is round 6 of the championship. Yeah, he's gone already.
Jack
That's
is gone.
very, very early indeed. But now is Jack Doe straight into the lead with a decent gap.
Leo, I know, with a bit of a wobble coming out of the final corner, but so far everybody making it through cleanly as we go into turn 1. Jack has absolutely gapped the field here off the start, catching everyone napping from the looks of it.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
An 8/10 gap going into the first complex is quite something.
The top Ferrari having a little bit of a moment. That is a Gabriel going off track. And we have a few movements, but the top 5, apart from Gabriel, are in the same position. There
Aziz
have been
Omar
no
with a bit of a
changes.
twitch coming out of the corner, potentially side by side with Leo Aina up here into Brooklands.
Going
Leo
into
Aina on the outside.
Oh, and there's contact side by side into Brooklands. And next into Lovefield, the inside line, the more favorable line for Leo Aina. Will he be able to stick it out on the inside? Less grippy line in the wet, of course. Leo Aina still side by side with Aziz Omar. These guys are gonna go Hamilton and Verstappen-esque into
Cops.
what was a Cop's corner.
There we go. What an amazing battle we're seeing here. I think these two, their squabbling's just going to allow Hassan Saigal, who has had a good start up to P5, to close in a little bit as we go through the epic Maggots and Beckett's corners, as they're still fighting side by side, Leo Aina and Aziz Omar. And it's going to be a question of who gets the best position. I think the BMW is going to have that for a good exit and to be able to get a little bit of a gap as we see Hassan Saigal defending from Felipe Nico in the BMW. And as we run down on the way down to Stowe, very, very tricky corner, very fast in the dry, less so in the wet. We see a few different lines being taken. But it seems like the more, let's say, dry line is being favoured at the moment, even though that it is wet. As we also see Jack Johns is 9th, just dropping down to 10th there on the screen by the look of things. He's having his own battles.
Yes, he appears to be side by side with Ahmed Al-Kasmi and the other Ford down in P9 and P10. They were side by side into the final chicane, but now I believe they have settled back into their respective positions. Now, this early fighting, I think, is absolutely perfect for Simon and his championship hope. He doesn't need to necessarily beat Jack today, but being in P2, that's exactly what he needs. Jack and himself can just drive off into distance as the McLaren's gone off in the background.
We have Jack sending it into... Oh, no, the door closes. But he still finds a way to be side by side. Now going into the loop. Jack Johns is going to be looking for the switchback, and he gets his nose in. Let's see if room is going to be given. Jack backs out, ultimately looking for a better opportunity, and the Mustang goes wide. Ahmed Al-Qasmi not able to make it work, and Jack Johns gets a free position.
There we go. Just keeping his powder dry and making a very, very good move there, waiting for the mistake, but put enough pressure there into the complex, and yeah, his opposition just running. And once you're out onto that AstroTurf, especially in the wet conditions, you are not going to be able to get traction. And yeah, we see Jack Johns moving up into 9th place as a result.
Yes, indeed. We have 4 drivers running in a little bit of a... Let's see here. A little bit of a train. We're going to go on board with Hassan Saigal, looking behind him as he has a BMW, a Porsche, and a Ferrari, all fighting for position and trading blows now through Maggots and Beckett's.
This is the really tricky thing for Hassan. Looking at his onboard footage from qualifying, he just had too much oversteer, where literally the rears were sliding as he was getting onto the power. And if his setup is anything similar to what he was running in qualifying, which I'd imagine it's not going to be too dissimilar, he might be under a little bit of a threat, because he had a very, very good start there, moving up into 5th. But it'll be a question of whether he can keep his tyres in the optimum window, not look in the mirrors too much, and be able to look at moving forwards.
And look who has joined the battle from behind. We're going to go on board and see what Jack Johns is seeing. He has 4 cars ahead of him and 40 minutes to do the job.
Yeah, this is going to be quite something. He's a real fighter, a real racer, is Jack Johns, and obviously from starting from the back of the grid, coming through, he's going to be eager to make his mark, and it's a long race, so you do need to bide your time. Need to look after... Oh, as we see a little bit of a wobble there from the BMW into the first complex. Some racing through here.
Said Bintouk sending it up the inside of Felipe Nico. Said Bintouk known to give good racing room in the past, and this is exactly what we're seeing now on this chopper cam.
Superb racing here. Oh, a little bit of contact as they're running down the Hamilton Straight on the way down to Brooklands and then Luffield, and going to go side by side. We got a couple of different lines in action here as they're trying to find the grip in these early laps here at Silverstone in the wet conditions, which is perfect for Hassan. He can now focus on trying to scamper away while everyone else is fighting behind.
Yes, indeed. What battles are we're seeing some great battles, and Said Bintouk masterfully closing the door in Brooklands, preventing any switchback from the BMW behind, who is now himself at risk from behind the Ferrari. The 2 wildcards getting involved, looking, fighting for what looks like the championship with the ferocity that they're fighting with. Really excited to see what happens with them, and luckily they're not affecting any of the top championship places, so no harm, no foul if they go fighting.
Absolutely. So Connor, I want to get a little bit of your expertise, your understanding. What are you looking for in these conditions? If you're Jack Johns at the moment coming through, what's going to be your approach in these wet conditions to be able to make the move through the field?
Yeah, I think staying patient is definitely going to be to the beneficiary here. Forcing other people into mistakes and just biding your time. This is, quite a long race.
We see the BMW Felipe Nico spin, and he loses all those
2 people
positions.
off. The Ferrari as well.
The Ferrari as well. Both lose it in that corner, and Jack Johns is the massive benefactor of that whole ordeal.
It's almost like I spoke into existence. Shades of Max Verstappen, but unfortunately the wrong shades is spinning off.
The poor
coming
guys.
out of,
You're literally saying about them making a mistake, and then straight away. So Jack Johns now up into P7. He's going to be very, very happy with that. 10 seconds down on the leader. And let's see through. We've got 37.5 minutes remaining. How much further he can progress. I think it's probably realistic to say he could get a podium here from the back of the grid.
I don't think it's completely out of the question. He's already made up quite a handful of positions early on into the race. So if he can get his head down and,
we're going to see the replay, and there's all kinds of different situations going on. I believe that was contact with Jack Johns that caused that.
Ferrari
not
checking up.
necessarily meaning that it's Jack John's fault, of course, but
Yeah, Ferrari checking up, I think, to avoid the BMW. Jack maybe potentially not seeing it because of the Ferrari in front of him and making some slight contact. We'll see if the stewards have a look at that.
yes, indeed.
Currently on the leaders, Jack Doe leading Simon Fridjovic by 2.3 seconds as it stands. I mean, these two completely comfortable out at the front, nothing to worry about. Jack is doing everything he needs to do to win this championship, but unfortunately for him, Simon is also doing the exact same thing. So we're going to have to see how this plays out. Obviously, still a pit stop to come up from everybody here. Mandatory because of the cap on how much fuel you can carry, which means you physically cannot finish this race without doing a pit stop.
And another differentiating factor between the manufacturers, because some manufacturers would be better than others on fuel, and so that's a little bit of an advantage. I think something that Jack Doe needs to be looking at is exactly his fuel consumption, because that's an avenue that he can improve over Simon. If he can get an extra lap in, if he can get a shorter pit stop, that's free time.
Exactly.
Absolutely. One thing I want to speak about is, obviously we've got Jack Doe leading the race, showing what he can do in these very tricky conditions. Hassan up there in P5. But one of the reasons why we wanted to start the Drivers' Lab iRacing Championship is to give opportunity to racers within the region and around the world the opportunity to show their talents, to show what they can do. And I think we've seen that throughout this championship, seeing some raw speed. Jack Doe has shown a lot of speed, a lot of ambition and overtakes. But of course, just with the experience of Fidorovic there, to be able to, what looks to be maybe lock out the championship here, but to be able to give those learning opportunities. And it's just great to see the championship thriving and the drivers, the community engaged with each other. We've had so much fun in terms of not just on the WhatsApp groups, on the streams, and with the racing action which we've been seeing.
Yes, we're seeing some action in the back from Khalid Al-Muhairi and Mohammed Al-Kubaisi as they're scrapping it out and taking all different kinds of curbs in the wet. Not advisable, I would say.
I wouldn't say so, no.
And we're going to keep an eye on the fight, but the fight I'm really interested in here is actually the fight here for P5.
There's a three-way fight between Hassan Saigal, Saeed Bintuk, and Jack Johns. These three have had quite a lot of experience racing each other throughout this championship, so maybe have they grown an understanding of how they race and then potentially using that to their advantage.
I think so. I think one of the main things that I like seeing in championships like this, and especially our championship, is that you get to know the drivers that you're wheel to wheel against, because race on race, naturally, the drivers with the same pace are being brought together, and so someone like Saeed Bintuk is going to be very familiar with Hassan Saigal's game, and Jack Johns with perhaps yours, Connor, as you are relatively similar pace, of course, same manufacturer, and they will know exactly the buttons to push whilst trying to either overtake or defend.
As we can see, Jack Johns flashing the back of Saeed Bintuk. I think if I didn't want to be someone on the track right now, that would be Saeed Bintuk. He's in a sandwich of Hassan Saigal and Jack Johns. I can tell you now, those are the two worst people you want either side of you right now. So
strong word.
I love that. I love that. Tell us what you really feel.
that's what I'm here for, is it not?
Superb. No, it's absolutely brilliant racing as we're seeing. Hassan's still struggling with the ultimate pace. As it seems there's a little bit of an opportunity there down the inside on the run through. Hassan just keeping on the wider line as Jack Johns runs off quite wide, flashing the lights, really showing that he wants to be able to find his way through. Saeed Bintuk having a look down the inside, trying to stay out of all of the spray. Very, very hard to be able to see when you're following, as we're now a three-way battle going into the first complex. It looks like we're having a little bit of a look down the inside. Nope, he's going to keep his powder dry, try and get the exit, which he's looking for the inside of the left. But I do anticipate that Jack Johns is going to be looking to capitalise on this as we're about to run down the straight. What an exciting battle in these wet conditions here at Silverstone.
This is absolutely fantastic, and exactly, it's the best advertisement for this series. You could see how much respect the drivers give each other, but at the same time, they're not holding back. I don't know how those two things can coexist, but they do. And sending a move on another driver puts you at risk of the driver behind at the next turn. And it's all these kind of chess moves that you have to consider while also being able to execute your braking points perfectly and getting on the throttle in these very difficult conditions.
Absolutely. We saw Jack Johns there taking a nice wide line through Luffield, which is going to give him great traction off the corner. And he's going to be looking to challenge into Copse. I don't anticipate it'll be quite enough here, so he's going to have to just bide his time a little bit, get the positioning right, as he's going to have a bit of a run through Copse. So, yeah, Jack Johns, he's always quite, let's say, excitable driver. He's going to be looking to get through as quickly as possible, but he knows it is a long race, as they are running. Absolutely, you couldn't put a piece of paper between them as they were running through Magnus and Beckett's there. And now setting up nicely, Jack, with good rotation on the power nicely. I do anticipate with a little bit of slipstream here, he's going to be in a position to make a move into Stowe. However, there are multiple lines you can run through there, so it's not going to be the work of a moment. He's still flashing the lights like the most eager GT driver, but Saeed Bentouk has gone in too deep. He's gone in wide and given the position to Jack. So, yeah, very nice again from Jack, putting the pressure on, flashing those lights, and taking the position.
Absolutely. I think mistake induced by Jack, going all into different mirrors of Saeed Bentouk and being everywhere all at once. Saeed spent too much time looking back and didn't realize that his braking points come up, and that led Jack to go through. Brilliant racecraft from both, I would say, and Jack getting the better of Saeed for this lap.
I just love the realism, because I know as driving all the GT races I did, I was on the flash as we see a move being launched into the first complex. Jack Johns overtaking.
Gigantic send from Jack Johns there on the inside of Hassan Saigal and making it stick. Hassan potentially getting a run out of here onto the Wellington Straight. Can he get alongside into Brooklands? Doesn't look like it. He hasn't got very good of an exit out of Aintree. So, yeah, Jack Johns getting through both Hassan Saigal and Saeed Bentouk within a lap of each other.
Wow. I mean, I don't know what Jack meant by I'm not going to interfere with the championship, but this has been the exact opposite of what he was saying before the race. Under promise, over deliver 101 from Jack Johns. Fantastic. And again, perhaps showing that different drivers need to be battled differently. Someone like Saeed Bentouk is going to close the door, is going to make sure that you don't see any inside apex while you're driving against him. And so it's more of a strategy game, trying to make him outbrake himself. But with Hassan, you just, you enter the Royal Mail, lick the stamp and send it.
Absolutely. I'm just wondering who's Jack Johns going to be flashing his lights to, because he's got 3.5 seconds now to be able to catch up to the back of the Porsche of Aziz Omar. As we see Hassan here defending like his life depends on it against Saeed Bentouk. But this was the downfall from the first lap of practice we followed with Hassan. He just does not have the traction out of the low speed corners, and that is really going to cost you a lot around Silverstone. So I think he's done a very good job to remain where he is at this moment. As we see, Jack Johns obviously making good progress through the field in the Aston to make his way up to P5.
Yes, indeed. We had an earlier incident with Ahmed Al Qasmi where he lost some positions. We're just going to go quickly and see a replay of that. And it is, just
losing out on his own.
Oh, was there going to be damage? Perhaps a little bit, and that is what lost Ahmed Al Qasmi 2 positions. We're going to go back to live, and we're going to follow this battle here as the 2 Porsches scrap it out, and perhaps we see a move from Saeed Bentouk going into Farm Corner, or Village, my mistake. Certainly puts the nose in, is going to be stuck on the outside for Village. Hassan Saigal defends on the grip your line, and no, they're still side by side. I thought for sure that Hassan cut him off, and the switchback is not going to work. Hassan just makes contact into the rear bumper of Saeed Bentouk, and that's position.
Classic parking it on the apex from Saeed Bentouk there, keeping his nose in through Village so that he has that gap to go into at the loop, and just parks himself on the apex, leaves Hassan nowhere to go, no option to do a switchback, no option to hang it around the outside, and he just has no option but to concede the position.
Saeed Mikel Arteta Bentouk right there, completely parking the bus and leaving no room. I didn't know that bus drivers in the Middle East were like that. I guess
that's great. Do you know the one thing I was thinking during that whole complex? It was, where are the Emir screams? People might be wondering, where's Emir on this one? He's decided He's decided to go to Russia actually during this time, so he's not here to scream as that move was being made. So we do apologise for the lack of the Emir screams, and they will return to normal service once we get our next championships up and running.
He has been dearly missed the last 2 rounds. That's definitely something to be said.
We're going to go for a quick replay as there's a big send going into Brooklands, and a send that didn't work out, unfortunately, for Khalid Al-Muhairi. We'll have to slot back in behind Mohammed Al-Kubaisi and live to fight another day. Luckily, no damage. We'll go back to live as, again, the 2 closest cars on track are these 2 Porsches. I think it's time for us, gentlemen, to go through and see the progress of everyone. Jack Doe, still very comfortable in the lead, has almost a 4-second gap and continuously building. Has also the fastest lap, which will of course give him that 1 extra point that he may or may not need to move forward and potentially win the championship. Simon Fidorovic is not that far back, so any misstep by Jack, any wrong curb or any grass usage can see Simon overtake, and with that, any hopes of the championship as well. And in 3rd place,
we have Leo Aina, the sole BMW in the field today. I stand corrected. The one of 2 BMWs, but for the majority of this championship, representing BMW himself. On for his best result of the season so far, I believe.
That
3rd
might be
place.
That might be it.
Followed relatively closely by Aziz Omar, not too far behind. That gap's been fluctuating throughout the other battling of P5 and 6, as Hassan Saigal has gone ahead of Saeed bin Tuk.
Oh, there has been a battle as we've been kind of going through and updating everyone on the happenstances of everybody else. We have Hassan overtaking Saeed bin Tuk, or re-overtaking, I should say. We're going to go on a quick replay journey and see how that all happened. So this is going into Brooklands, and just too much curb usage from Saeed bin Tuk. This is the Wellington Straight, of course, the DRS zone. We're going to go back to live as the 2 cars are still very close by, as Saeed bin Tuk is not going to let this one go.
Yeah, absolutely not.
On the back of Hassan Saigal.
He's made the move once. He can absolutely make it again. He was taking advice, I think, from Jack Johns. I saw him earlier flashing the back of Hassan Saigal, potentially seeing if that method will work on Hassan. So far holding firm as they go onto the hangar straight. Doesn't seem like Saeed has a run here, but you never know. There's been plenty of mistakes from these 2 already, from the slightest maybe duck to the inside or a flash of the lights. So this battle, I imagine, will rage on for the majority of the rest of this race.
I think so. And it's great. I think wet battles are a little bit difficult to come by sometimes with all the spray going on, but these drivers are both equally matched and, with a head on their shoulders to think of the whole race in a racecraft perspective. They are not just blindly sending it, hoping for the best. But in any case, we'll go through the field once again. Let's take a look at Leo Aina. Solid result coming in for him. I think that skips him ahead quite far up the order in the championship standings if he were able to consolidate this 3rd place. But I think all in all, Aziz Omar has been gaining, and this is something that could be potentially a battle going into the final stages of the race, especially with the pit stops being its consideration.
Absolutely. There's definitely potentially some shaking up we've seen in the past at the pit stops. We get to see maybe who's been fuel saving, who hasn't, as I don't think tires will be something that you need to take in this race. It will purely be a splash and dash. And with some of these gaps being quite small, how much fuel you take in that pit stop might determine who comes out ahead.
Exactly, and you don't necessarily have to get the position on overtake. Oh, Saeed bin Tuk getting the black flag. Has there been a breach of incidents?
It is.
Yes, it is. So he is the first driver to see the black flag due to incident points. That is gonna...
We've got 2 drivers on black flags now, actually. Khalid Al-Muhairi,
yeah,
I think a while ago, also not reaching the incident limit, though. Potentially some other reason.
Yes.
Not sure what that is yet. But
Saeed bin Tuk will have to serve a drive-through at some point in this race. Of course, oh, we see a BMW in the background doing some crazy moves. But that does throw... that is not ideal for his battle with Hassan, I would say.
Yeah, potentially throwing away a top 5 finish here, as obviously he was in that fight with Jack Johns as well, who's now kind of driven off into the distance here. You know, these two were the closest people on track for the majority of it, and now seemingly Hassan is now just kind of in the middle of no man's land. He's got Jack Johns, who's pulled away a decent bit in front of him, and now Saeed Bintuk, who's dropped back behind him and on a penalty. So potentially quite a lonely race in store now for Hassan Saigal after a lot of battling at the start.
Correct. I think now it comes down to strategy. The pit window opens in roughly 10 minutes, I would say, for most of these drivers. As Hassan does, or Saeed Bintuk does go into the pits.
Yeah, serving the penalty straight away.
Serving the penalty straight away, you're right. We're going to go on board with Jack Johns for a little bit. And what a race it has been for Jack.
Yes, indeed. I mean, coming from the back of the field, obviously some very exciting racing, which we've been following on board with. As we see, he's closed the gap. He was 3.7 seconds away from the next car when he made it past that little gaggle of cars. And it's now down to just over 2 seconds. So he's definitely making a move. And it's not going to be too long, maybe 7 or 8 laps perhaps, maybe less, before he's going to be on the back of the next car. So very excited to see this journey, as we also get a really good insight as to how difficult it is in these very wet conditions as we go around Luffield, running just mid-track. We saw a few laps ago him taking a really wide line to be able to set up for a mega exit when he was racing against the other cars before. Now he is just going for optimum performance to be able to catch the car ahead on the run down to Copse Corner. Absolutely legendary circuit, very, very difficult in these conditions, and easy to run up to the curb on the exit and get some wheel spin, which Jack manages to avoid nicely. But it does look like the weather is fully set in. There is no respite, there's no sunshine. It's literally just a very cold, windy, rainy day in Northampton. Something which everyone in British motorsport has been more than familiar with.
Would these conditions, Dan, you think cause a black flag in real life? Do you think this is too wet to go racing?
No, absolutely not. No, this is perfectly raceable conditions. Of course, we see a little bit of standing water around places, but visibility is very, very good. I've been in races certainly where you've not been able to see the car next to you, let alone anything else. Admittedly, this was back in 2011. I'm thinking of my racing in the UK, and you would just crack on. Okay, it's a little bit more cautious these days, let's say, with the safety element, but no, these conditions are perfectly raceable.
Let's go on board quickly with Aziz Omar, who is a little bit of a MVP of the championship. He's been so selfless in providing us with the most practice servers for all the drivers to use. We see Felipe Nico go into the pits. We're gonna just quickly go and follow him for a second as he goes into the pits. Yes, so we have a pit stop timer here, which
I panicked a little bit. I saw Hassan and Felipe Nico switch positions. I forgot the pit entry cuts the last about 3 corners. I thought maybe Hassan had made some sort of mistake and lost a bunch of time.
So let's see. He's gonna stop in his pit box, and the pit time is gonna start. And let's see how long that takes. Now, Mohamed Al-Kubaisi and Saeed Bintuk also follow Felipe into the pits. We see quite a decently long stop for Felipe. I wonder if there's any damage that is required to be repaired. And that is 14 seconds. So that gives us a little bit of an understanding about how long each pit stop will be. So 14 seconds at the moment is the time to beat. Of course, you don't want to underfuel. Underfueling will be quite embarrassing for all drivers involved. We have Al-Kubaisi now also pitting.
There's a very fine line, of course, knowing how much fuel to put in. I fall foul of that in Okayama, putting a bit too much fuel in my car and losing position to Simon Petrovic as a result. We were fighting for, I think, P2 at the time. And yeah, it seems like the pit lane might get quite busy soon as we see Jack Johns close up to Aziz Omar. Aziz Omar was also closing up to Leo Aina. Could we see another 3-way battle for the podium here come the end of the race?
I think so. I wonder if this is Aziz Omar fuel saving and Jack Johns pushing. It could be a tell. Of course, it's impossible for us to know here because we don't have access to that telemetry. It would be unfair, I think, for the drivers to have that telemetry be public because we want to give them the room to battle in that kind of way and decide their own strategy.
Jack Johns
Tives into the pits, Jack Doe is in the pits, Simon Fidorovich in the pits, Leo Aina is in the pits, everyone is in the pits, and we are watching very closely.
It seems like Aziz Omar has been the one who's been fuel saving, going a lap extra compared to all the front runners as they've all come in on the same lap. Could we see Aziz Omar potentially jumping Leo Aina in the pits here? The gap was about 2 and a bit seconds when Leo Aina comes in. You know,
Yeah.
is that enough for one less lap of refueling?
We're looking at 14 seconds average pit stop time for all the drivers.
14 for Jack
seconds
Doe.
for Jack Doe.
14 for Simon.
So everyone is choosing to put the exact same amount of fuel.
See Leo Aina potentially. What's his time going to be? Also 14 seconds. So now this is going to be looking painstakingly at Aziz Omar. Can he get a good in-lap in as well? Get on his marks in his pit box and also the pit lane. And yeah, could he potentially jump up a position here?
Yes, indeed. So getting that extra lap in could be all the difference that is needed for Aziz to, at the very least, guarantee his position ahead of Jack Johns, who's closing in very rapidly.
Absolutely.
Jack Johns, it didn't show us the graphic, but I am led to believe that he refueled for the... Oh no,
13.
Jack Johns spent 13 seconds, so 1 second less. Of course, he was less than 1 second behind, so that potentially puts him net up a position over Aziz Omar if Aziz has a standard pit stop.
So, Connor, tell us a little bit in terms of the strategy. What would you consider the optimum strategy? You want to stop early? You want to stop later? Does it affect the tyre pressures? What's the concerns for the drivers? Why are they choosing these stops now?
I believe for the wet, tires are not going to be much of a concern. The degradation won't be that high. Temps aren't that high either. So it would be purely just, you know, if you have the ability to, such as, you know, potentially some of the front runners, is to just go as long as possible, save as much fuel to be on as low fuel for as long as possible in this race. As we've seen Aziz Omar able to do that as he'll be entering the pits, I imagine, very shortly. I'd be very surprised if he's able to save 2 laps compared to the front runners. But yeah, I imagine for this, when we don't have many changeable conditions, it's going to be wet the whole time. It's just going to be, can you save as much fuel as possible without it being a detriment to your pace?
And it is indeed 1 lap saved for the Porsches. No, Aziz Omar was
he's
able
gone
to
2
stay
laps.
out.
We have a black flag for Hassan Seigel.
I think that might be a speeding in the pit lane. I
That's
feel like
speeding
he
in the
might
pit
have
lane.
overshot his pit lane here, as I was saying what Aziz Omar shouldn't do, but it seems like he's been able to go 2 laps extra to everyone, or
Aziz
have the
Omar
leaders
is in the pits as
potentially
well.
gone... Oh, has he gone? My apologies.
So it seems like the graphic isn't showing us all the information that we might want. But let's see how much fuel Aziz Omar is putting
13.2.
in.
The same pit time as Jack Johns. He's leaving the pits now. Actually, Jack Johns jumping Aziz Omar here.
Jumping Aziz Omar.
So potentially a sloppy in-lap from Aziz Omar here, or a brilliant out-lap from Jack Johns here. And now Jack can potentially push on to a podium here and overtake Leo Aina.
I'm just left thinking, what would have happened if Jack started towards the front of the grid? What a performance, up to P4 now, and not that far away from the podium.
Yes, indeed. It seems like being British and growing up in Britain certainly helped in this case.
Absolutely. Weather for ducks, we're used to it. This is one thing you see from British drivers when they go abroad. The moment it rains, you know, they're the ones who move towards the front. Same with the New Zealanders, the Aussies. Yeah, you take the Brits, you put them in the rain. You're gonna have a good result.
Yes, very well done to Jack Johns, because he put himself in a position that no one thought he would be, and a masterstroke in outlap, in-lap, plus the pit lap, of course, and spending the minimum amount of time in the pit lane and getting the most out of it. At the moment, a position, but perhaps more, as he's chasing down a podium position with Leo Aina perhaps on the hook.
No, absolutely. Really impressive performance. I do wonder if he started at the back just so that he could have maximum TV time of the action of him overtaking everyone through the field. But what a great strategic decision there. And it goes to show what just a little bit of thought, a little bit of foresight in terms of the strategy to be able to make your way through the grid towards the podium. And yeah, this could really change the race for him.
Yeah, you can see now Leo Aina going through the club section, the club chicane. The through goes Hamilton corner, famous, of course, for Crofty's lovely commentating. And it seems like corner after corner, there's a tenth or 2/10 in it for Jack Johns. And maybe 12 minutes is a very long time if you're in Leo Aina's position at the moment. You want the race to end now.
No, absolutely. With I mean, they're going to get about 5, maybe 6 laps in here, and I don't think it's going to be enough. Jack does seem to have the pace. He's already closed a couple of tenths. As you see, different line choices here from the BMW of Leo Aina and the Aston Martin of Jack Johns. But one thing which it seems to be very strong for Jack is traction off the corners. He gets very, very good runs, especially off the low-speed corners. And on the run down to Brooklands and Luffield, is going to be looking to start to pressure a little bit. He's gradually moving towards the BMW, and he's going to be flashing those lights very soon to try and put off the BMW of Leo Aina.
I love the difference in lines. You can see that Jack and Leo are both using very different lines in the wet. And at the moment, you can see it's not even half a lap. It's just one sector, and 5/10 taken away from Leo. Leo will be, I would say,
mildly concerned.
Mildly concerned.
Like some would say, the saxophones are getting louder
Yes!
for Leo Aina here.
Yes!
We know previously Jack Johns, he is going to make his car look as big as possible in Leo Aina's mirrors. And I can imagine, Leo might be feeling the pressure here. But now we can see if he's going to be a bit more resilient to that pressure, unlike some other drivers Jack has raced so far this race.
Yes, so far. These are the two closest drivers, so we will be following them. But just as a quick recap, with 10 minutes to go, Jack does maintain his lead and does build a gap over Simon Fedorovic. Identical pit stops from the two Ford drivers, identical strategy.
Just looking there at the BMW ahead there of Leo Aina, just started to get a little bit of a wiggle on. A touch of oversteer in the mid of Stowe, which is not what you want there. And Jack will be smelling blood right now. And this is where you'll see the traction. What I said about coming off these slow speed corners. He's able to get the power down very nicely as we ride on board now. What a great camera shot. This is exactly how it feels like when you're in the car. And I've just got this thrill, this sort of excitement running through me now, watching this on board as we go to this first complex. And he's going to be looking for how can he set himself up to be able to make the move on the BMW ahead.
Yes, it feels like we're just corners away from a move being done, and Leo Aina has to step on the defensive and close the doors behind him as he goes through the first sector now, coming up to the Wellington straight. It's important to get a good exit. This is normally a non-corners, easy flat, but in the wet it becomes a very important corner leading to one of the better overtaking zones in the wet going into Brooklands Luffield. And now Jack Johns is potentially looking for a switchback move going into Luffield, and he is able to pull it off. Can he hang it around the outside? He can, and he just closes the door, and the move is done, and the chapter is closed, and seemingly now there was no answer for Leo Aina.
Wow, that was quite something. And what was really key to see as we were looking at Leo trying to see if he can come back in the slipstream of Jack. I'm not sure if it will be enough, but it does seem to be looking through the inside. And wow, that's very, very impressive. This is going to be a traction race on the run down as now Leo is returning the favour, trying to blind the Aston Martin of Jack Johns as we now run through Magus and Beckett. But it does seem that I think Jack just has that ultimate pace to be able to start to make the gap. But what was really interesting following on board was how we set that move up. It was corner by corner by corner. That wasn't the move of a moment. That was the move of the 6 or 7 corners before it. And really impressive to see his experience in how he dealt with that overtake to be able to get the job done and move up into what is an amazing P3 from the back of the grid with just 8 minutes remaining.
Some would say it wouldn't be possible for Jack to get through one of these races without being involved in an incident, but now we're able to see that he is capable and he can race people wheel to wheel.
So what was he doing all the rounds before that?
That is my point exactly.
I think this is the great thing about the community. We call a spade, and yeah, Jack Johns is really developed throughout this championship, and we're seeing some of his best driving to the podium here.
Yes, and it looks like the Aston Martin is just so much more stable, so much more comfortable out of these traction zones. We see a lot with Leo Ayna's car. Just a slide here, a slide there, over rotation here, understeer there. It seems like the Aston is just hooked up right and has the proper wet setup, and Johns is executing beautifully at the moment.
Now, Connor, just give us a little bit of an idea. How much preparation goes into these esports events? Especially for a wet race. What kind of work do you need to do for setup and for your preparation, as we're watching Ahmed Al-Kashmi and Gabriele fighting here on the run through Stowe?
Yeah, a wet race, you're always going to have to approach slightly differently to a dry one because, in a dry race, especially if you're trying to adjust setup, you're going to maybe potentially take a bit of risk, go for quite an aggressive setup to get that ultimate pace. But in the wet, a lot of it is going to come down to what are you comfortable with, how much risk are you willing to take, or can you take any risk at all? Because at the end of the day, with these wet races, it's going to be, can you keep it on the grey stuff? And Jack is showing exactly that he's been able to do that. So, yeah, there's also, I would say, quali might be less of a factor as well in these wet races. Me personally, at least, I remember at Okayama, didn't practice a lot of quali. It was a lot of just getting consistent laps in the wet, seeing where the grip is, where the grip isn't, if you're going to go for moves, which areas are good for that, which aren't. So yeah, it seems like Jack Johns has checked all the boxes for that this round.
No, absolutely, especially if he knew starting from the back, he's just going to be focusing on that race setup, and that's exactly what he seems to have under him. He knows what he's got. He's got a predictable car, and he knows with a longer race like we have today, as we see a little bit of oversteer in the BMW through Stowe, which we commented on the last lap around, then yeah, he's very, very comfortable to be able to not just have good lap times, but to be able to race these other manufacturers and to come through, as we've said, really cleanly.
I mean, full lean on the traction control from Leo Ayna, just completely making that ECU work overtime with the intervention of the traction control. But it can be an effective tactic sometimes. Dan, how are electronics used in cars like traction control and ABS in the wet? How is it different from when it is dry?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to go up a bit on your ABS, so on the braking system, so you're going to want to have a little bit more intervention there. Same thing for the traction control. Now, this is the balance. Some manufacturers, especially if they've got a gentleman driver in the car, they're going to say, okay, you want to whack it up all the way because they want you to be nice and safe. The truth is you want it at that sort of level where you can get a little bit of slip. You need to be able to rotate the car, but it needs to be in a controllable fashion. If you have too much TC intervention, you're gonna understeer. You're not going to be able to get the power delivery which you want. And this is what we're seeing here now with the BMW. Of course, he's got this over rotation on the mid and the exit, so the TC is going to be working, and that's going to be cutting power delivery to the rear wheels, which is just going to hamper your exit even more. So this is something which they'll be working to set up properly in their practice to get something they are comfortable with, to be able to get good rotation while keeping the exit. And this is the key. In the wet, there is less grip, so you have to have better weight transfer. You need to be able to basically take the correct amount of speed through the corner without being too ambitious and hampering the exit, because this is where it becomes super important, especially on like a corner out here coming down on the run to Stowe, making sure that you're able to take the lap time in the straights and not just being overworking the tyres in the corners themselves.
Very nice. And you can see, I mean, with all of that, Leo Ayna is a second and a half behind Jack, and the spray is still so strong. I mean, the rain's definitely increased and the visibility is getting worse. Oh no! Oh no! What's happening?
Cut the final chicane is now continuing, overtaking Jack Johns in the process. This is...
Wait, what just happened? Why did Leo Ayna just completely cut the track there?
I am lost for words here. Now defending, it seems, from Jack Johns. Contact made.
We were saying about the clean race. I think we're going to be seeing a little bit of action. Yeah, not quite sure what's going on, but Jack's not going to be very, very happy about it. He's going to have to use that pace we've been talking about, which he's using straight away and deploying to be able to get the move done into the second part of the complex. And this is where Jack's going to want to have that good traction coming onto this straight on the run down here. but the BMW there still in the wheel tracks, but he's had a bit of oversteer on the curb there, just about managed to keep the car straight, but I don't anticipate he'll be able to come back unless he's going to be cutting another part of the track. But yeah, what was he thinking?
I don't know what happened. That looked deliberate to me. I don't think that was like one of those situations where you take the escape road at Turn 1 Monza. This seems like a situation for the stewards to investigate after the race, who I think have been having a pleasant afternoon, actually.
Yeah, not much to note of from the stewards. A couple things here and there at the beginning of the race, but yeah, back to what happened with Leo Aina, seemingly just turning left on a straight, maybe somehow forgetting which layout we're using today. Yeah, never seen
His
that
car
before.
is painted like Lightning McQueen. You know, turn right to go left.
You never know. You never know. Might have to ask him after this. But yeah,
I look forward to finding out the result of that one, because that one was very, very strange. But it seems like he's really not given up. He's just about staying half a second back from Jack, and we know Jack's got great pace here today. So he's really trying to find a way to be able to come back with just a minute and a half to go.
Yes, indeed. And with a minute and a half to go, I think it's important to point out what the leaders are doing. We have Jack Doe sitting in first, comfortably in the lead, and doing everything to secure the best possible position for himself. But now entering the final lap, if it were to finish like this, it would not be enough, as Simon Fidorovich, only being 8 seconds behind, is in second place and doing more than enough from his end to secure the championship.
yeah. As it stands, I've got a spreadsheet here. After the drop round has been applied, as it stands, Simon Fidorovich will win the championship by 10 points to Jack Johns.
And,
Jack Doe.
and guess what? It's more than enough to be the winner, even if it is 1 point. So Simon will be looking to just bring it home, not attack any of the curbs, make sure he has enough fuel and done all the fuel saving that he needs to bring it home. And of course, right behind him, Jack Johns, who's now again comfortably ahead of Leo Aina.
Again,
still
starting from last and now in a podium position. I would
Absolutely
say
fantastic.
by leaps and bounds, Jack Johns' best race of the season.
Yes.
And what a time to do it.
I agree. We have Leo Aina, who has taken a creative approach to the layout of Silverstone tonight. Aziz Omar, who's had a little bit of a quiet race, but
Yeah, I don't believe involved in any battles with anybody. I think potentially there was a potential squabble with Leo Aina before the pit stops, but that never came about.
Correct.
Yeah, very quiet from him today, but
and yeah, a 0 incident point race for both Jack Doe and Simon Fidorovich as they come through the final sector of Silverstone.
Yeah, an amazing performance here from Jack Doe as he just rounds Stowe. He's had such amazing pace, taking the fastest lap with an 8.5 second gap back to Simon. I mean, yeah, as he breaks to this final complex, what an amazing performance from him to take the win here today.
Yes, indeed. Jack Doe coming through the final corner to take the victory of the final race at the Drivers Lab iRacing Manufacturers Championship. Flashing his lights, chuffed for the win, but not winning the championship as Simon Fidorovich rounds the same corner 8 seconds later and becomes your champion, your driver's champion. Together, of course, they make up the team that had the most points for their manufacturer, and that is the manufacturer win for Ford as Jack Johns comes in to the podium positions, finishes third, right in front of Leo Aina, coming in fourth. A great result for Leo.
Superb result there for Jack Johns. Super impressed. What exciting racing he gave us through the field. It was a real pleasure to watch, and yeah, what a super drive. Everyone, like you say, the stewards, they can go on holiday because that was all in all a very, very clean race. But we see Hassan Saigal finishing P9. It goes to show from qualifying that first onboard I saw, he did not have the car under him for what he needed it to do. And that's what happens over the distance of this longer race here today. But yeah, what a result for Jack with nearly a 10-second gap over
Yes.
Simon. Not bad at all.
Hassan hoping for a race that was better than the one that he had, picking up a penalty and overall under-delivering his skill and perhaps the car, as we see Aziz Omar finishing P5 with a penalty of his own. So what could have been, there's always tomorrow, there's always next race, and we're looking for Hassan to bring his A game and taking everything that he learned from this championship and deploying it in the races to come, as I'm sure there will be. Any standout driver for you as a fellow competitor, you think, Connor?
Not to be biased, but to be biased, I think it has to go to Jack Johns today. Starting last, making his way through the field. I mean, and doing so in probably the cleanest fashion by a mile he's done all season. I think we have to talk about Jack Doe and Simon Fidrovic as well. Absolute domination from the two Mustang boys today. Jack doing everything he needed to do to win the championship, winning by 9.5 seconds. But Simon returning the favor, doing everything he needs to do and more to keep his lead in the championship. And yeah, I think the top 3 in this race is by far the top 3 best drivers. I think that's how you should see it.
Big words coming in from Connor. You wouldn't put yourself in that top 3.
Oh, are you saying in terms of the whole championship?
If you were to rank yourself.
I think because I've missed 3 rounds now, I think the 2 rounds initially I had done, I think before I started missing rounds, I was in the realm of the fight for the championship. So I would like to put myself in that conversation. I think, ultimately I don't think I would have had the pace against the 4 boys, but I think I would slot myself in firmly in the top 5 somewhere, potentially 3rd or 4th, if I was able to do the entire season. But again, who knows? I think also a notable thing, Simon and myself and Zach Didkov were the top 3 in the championship at one point, and we are the 3 drivers with the least amount of incidents. So I think that has to be said as well as a point towards myself.
Like we say, if my grandma had wheels, she'd be a bicycle at the end of the day. And this is the thing. I think for me, the driver of the day, I think it has to go to Jack Doe. I think because Jack was on pole position. He got the win. He did exactly what he needed to do to try and attempt to win the championship. I think the only reason I think Jack Johns did some amazing racing. But yeah, with it's easier looking good coming from the back of the grid when you're able to put on a performance like that to win the final round. Yeah, so for me it has to go to Jack Doe himself.
Yes, and Neil Doe in the comments section pointing out the fact that the Fords have a 20 kg success ballast for this race and still comfortably came
it's in the weight. That just helps you with the weight transfer. No.
Yeah, I would argue as well this weight penalty might have aided in the Fords here because depending also on where that ballast is placed on the car, we don't fully know. But if it is placed towards the rear of the car, I would imagine it would help in traction in these wet conditions. But rules are rules, and I think regardless of the weight penalty, I think the result would be unchanged between these two.
All right, gentlemen. Congratulations to Simon. Commiserations to Jack and the rest of the field. We will quickly just take a look at the first lap just as a final goodbye to this championship and leave. So let's see here. This is lap 1. We have some overtakes happening.
See the Ferrari having a little bit of a spin there. He just about managed to keep it straight, keep himself in the game. But yeah, it was a very exciting first lap as they're all trying to figure out where the grip is, how much they can take in terms of the grip on the circuit. As you see, that's the little wobble which he's having coming onto the start-finish straight. We saw some great racing side by side. The run through Abbey. Yeah, what an amazing wet race here at Silverstone with a big launch down the inside.
Yes, indeed. And with that, lovely ladies and gentlemen, we will be saying our goodbyes and wishing you all farewell and telling you to watch the socials because we do have something in the works. We can't announce it quite yet, but I think it's going to be very exciting and you definitely do not want to miss it.
Absolutely. I'd like to thank the whole community for supporting everyone on track, everyone in the WhatsApp group. We've had some amazing racing on the circuit, but also some great banter off the track and some opportunity just to see the development of the drivers throughout this championship, which is what it's all about at the end of the day. It's been a real pleasure, and very much looking forward to the next iteration. So yes, do keep your eyes peeled on the socials to be able to see what's going to be coming your way. But a big thanks also to Connor here for joining us, giving some expert insight in terms of in the eyes of a competitor from an esports driver in this championship. It's been a real pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. It's been an honor to fill the boots of the legendary Amir, who's done a great job commentating this season, along with Ruslan, of course, doing everything in the background. This wouldn't have happened without the work of these people, and yeah, excited to see how this goes from here, what the future holds for us.
Yes, and from my side, a quick shout out to our steward, Daryl Brady, with the help of Chairman Amir and the tribunal head, Dan Wells. If there is ever a dispute, it goes up the chain and eventually gets resolved.
Anything you need, do be very nice to me. I like cheesecake, so if anyone wants to get the tips, just nice cheesecake will do it.
There you go. All right, we'll end it there. Thank you all so much for watching, and we can't wait to see you in the next one. Goodbye.